Yeah, so just take me back a little bit. Maybe Ben, you can kick this one off. I mean, you're both really into environment, and I know you kind of play down your level of engagement, but it's clear that you've been involved and aware of this issue for a couple decades at least, and you've seen governments come and go, and politicians come and go, and what's been your sense of how politics has engaged with environmental issues to date?
I suppose the first thing I want to say, and maybe it's a little bit off your question, but it's in relation to the deal that has been worked out between the parties. And I feel very strongly that as a Green voter, having had a vote for the first time in my constituency, I voted to put the Greens into government so that something could be done about climate change. And I would feel utterly betrayed if you don't go into government. And I think the same, I could say the same for all my family, my grandchildren, my children, and my extended family. So I just want to, that's the first thing I want to say. And I want to say it with absolute passion. It would be an utter betrayal. We didn't vote for the Greens to go onto the opposition benches. And if we wait for 5 years, things will have got so bad in terms of climate change that there would be absolutely no point whatsoever in having Green on the ticket at all. So first of all, don't betray us, whatever you do.
So then I'm gonna make Jenny take us back a little bit. I mean, in terms of the changes that you've seen with regards to Ireland's environment and your engagement with that issue.
So I only do it in my own small ways by listening, as I said, to you on the dandelions, by the plastic stuff, by buying an electric car, but they all seem so small. And I don't have connection with I'm so lucky that we have a Green TD now. As I think this is our first in Limerick, isn't it? I think so. But I suppose what I'm hoping for him is that he will really emphasize the core green issues. I think if they get diluted too much into the other issues which are all very laudable and they're all vaguely connected with being green, but they don't seem to be the essence of it. And maybe the other thing too that's really important for me is that somehow I saw the Green Party as different. I know they're political now, but there was something really nice and gentle about them, and they seemed to get on well together, and they weren't in it for political gain. You know, they were there because they were impassioned about the issues and the climate and our grandchildren. And I'm terrified that that's kind of leaking out.
Mm-hmm. I feel very strongly that there was something different about the Greens because they seemed to build a sense of community which was very respectful within the party. And I think in order to do that, you have to bring more than just ideas to the political scene. You have to bring some kind of ability, first of all, to have known yourself and to have looked into yourself and to know how much of my ego is driving me and how much of this is genuine, objective material that needs to be dealt with in the political arena. So I think there needs to be a sort of personal awareness, and there also needs to be awareness of how people build cooperation within a group, and that can be brought out then into the political arena. But if there are people who just are in their heads and passionate about things but haven't a kind of a heart dimension that they can bring as well, which is compassionate about people who differ from them, you'll never bring people along with you if you go in there and just argue in a completely intellectual way without having any understanding of how the other person might move nearer to your own position. And I see that, I have seen it, I think, operating in the Greens. And I would hate to see it being lost. And maybe the danger is that now that there's a lot of dissension in the Greens, that element of community and of tolerance, internal tolerance, will get lost. So hopefully that won't happen. And I think that's what I've admired about the Greens, that they have this understanding of community and of mutual tolerance, but also have a vision and a passion to bring about something that is vitally important for our planet.
Yeah, totally. Jenny, what's your feeling about how politics to date has engaged with the environmental issues that you care about?
Well, I think they haven't, what's the word, honored some of the agreements that they have made, and they don't seem to be giving it a priority. And the voices of the farmers and the people, whereas I feel sorry for them and everything else, but they're not able to tackle that. It's just too politically death for them to do that. So I don't think they have.
So it's interesting, both of your comments bring up a really good point that I don't necessarily align with myself, but just to be the devil's advocate here, some of the people who are within the Green Party and are opposed to going into government say it's because our major political parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, have shown no interest in these issues to date. So, and that's a fair point. I think you would agree. You've kind of said that yourself. So, in a way, by going in with them, we kind of potentially are propping up people who aren't interested in these issues anyway. So what's your feeling? How do you reconcile that in your own minds?
I think you've got a very good deal. I think you can't afford to be too precious in terms of kind of dirtying your fingers by engaging with other parties. I think that it's your last chance. We have 10 years in which to do something. And if you waste 5 of them being purist to that degree, then I think it's just a waste of time. I think that let me see, the thought has gone out of my head when you get older. You forget what you want to say. No, I think that it is so important that they go in. I think that there won't be any other issues if we don't deal with the climate issue. I feel passionately too about issues like homelessness and about direct provision, and I'm glad to see there's some mention of that in the programme. But I think that if we don't deal with the absolutely major issue, which is the total destruction of the planet and it's going up in smoke, then we won't have the other issues. They'll be dealt with, but they won't, by the planet just collapsing. So I don't have sympathy for those who won't go into government. I think it's terrible when you're our age, you realize that you can't get everything you want, and that you sometimes have to, is it compromise, or else to kind of go in with hope and belief that people can be changed. And it was interesting to listen to some of the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael politicians talking this week, and they seemed to be trying to take on the clothes of the Green Party. They were talking about the importance of green issues. So I don't want to say that they're converted, but I do want to think that influence of the Greens in there will actually be really important and will bring about some change.
And Jenny, what's your feeling about this idea that we're just propping up people who don't care?
Well, in truth, I wouldn't lie. I did say they haven't delivered on their promises and they haven't shown that they're serious about it. But I would imagine that there are enough good people in Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. They're not blind and they're not stupid. They know that green issues are vital, but they just haven't had the political wump to actually, they knew it would be political death, so they don't do it. So I think that having the Greens, in a sense, I presume they can blame the Greens now for having to sort of push these issues. And it probably will resonate with the good part of them and the bit of them that really does want to do this, but they just couldn't, or weren't able, or were too weak.
Yeah, so you're hopeful that they'll all move to the Green side a little bit more.
Well, they can certainly blame the Greens on it. They won't, well, can't do anything about this. Sorry, the government will fall apart. So,
they're making us do it, yeah.
But I want to be generous and say, look, in their deepest hearts, they know they want it too, and they know, as Ben says, look, this has to be dealt with. It's a disaster if we don't.
Yeah.
Can I just add? I believe that all politicians have children and grandchildren. I know that as a grandmother, I am deeply, deeply worried about what will happen if the Greens don't go ahead and try and bring about change. I think the kind of world that my grandchildren are going to live in will be one where they will be faced with the most awful moral issues, moral decisions. It will be so difficult for them. And all the kind of values that we hold dear will be tested. And if we don't do something about things now, as the seas rise in Bangladesh and other places, people will be suffering so much. They will be hungry, they'll have to move. We don't know ourselves what will happen in our own country. So we just have to do something. And I worry. I used to say to myself, look, it doesn't concern me because I'll be dead and gone. But I can't say that. My children will be there, my grandchildren will be there. And I just don't want to delay another minute before something is done. And something is better than nothing. And if we don't put the Greens in, nothing will be done, or very little. We have some hope if we put the Greens in. And if you go into government and do what the electorate requested of you, we voted for you on the assumption that you would be wanting to go into government. We didn't vote to put you on the back benches. So please go into government.